Adam, thank you for coming on the pod.
Pleasure.
It's good to have you on. We typically start with a bit on your experience. You've been in financial marketing for around 15 years. I would be curious to see how the market's developed from your experience in that time.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me on. Great to be here. Crikey, I hoped you wouldn't say 15 years, but yeah, it has been that long. What has changed? I guess it depends on the platforms and the businesses that you talk to. I did have a conversation with someone earlier who's had a 15-year career at one company, and they said that their avenues and distribution channels and their marketing routes haven't changed in that entire time. So you've got many business. I think if you ask the incumbents versus the newer platforms, many of their distribution and marketing challenges will be largely the same. There'll be lots of events, there'll be lots of print, there'll be lots of out of home. But I think they had the brands already, and they had the kind of the structure already, and they had the product suite already, whereas a new challenger brand like ours didn't have that. So we've had to kind of become more of a lifestyle product. And investing today versus 15 years ago, I remember it probably was about 15 years ago. It was when Royal Mail shares were available. And you had to call up and purchase them. It was such a bizarre process and such a complicated process. And I worked at an investment company, and it was so unintuitive actually how to buy a product. And I think the financial products in those days were a mortgage, a credit card, something you would maybe buy once a year or once every few years. So you could go into a physical location, which would have the trust. And that would be where you kind of experience the brand. Whereas a product like InvestEngine, we're now almost like a lifestyle product because people are touching it every single day. It's in your iPhone. It's experienced in exactly the same way as you would experience any other app on the platform. So our bar for decent marketing, a decent product experience is not just what you can do over a bank counter. It's benchmarked against all other apps you find on your phone. So that means we're competing in a marketing space with not just financial products and not just traditional financial services, but for the attention of all the products that are appealing to our target market. So yeah, it has got a lot harder. We're probably having to manage many more channels than we used to. It used to be kind of email, events, websites. I would probably spend my time creating landing pages.
Is this at InvestEngine or at
this was 15 years ago,
okay.
Probably at an asset management company at the time. I remember we went through a process of launching the website, and the main focus there was trying to surface all of the fact sheets. Whereas now, all of our marketing is we're doing influencer marketing, we're doing kind of performance marketing, we're doing events, partnerships. There's so many different nuances and layers to the marketing that we do now. So yeah, I'd say it's definitely got more of a complicated beast than it used to be. And
at InvestEngine, you've been there 5 years?
5 years, yes.
Has that remained consistent in terms of the many different channels and lifestyle products that you're trying to sort of build?
Yes. So I think it's an interesting journey because trust is the most important thing. And it's not I'm sure you'll have many people who've been in my position that will say trust is the most important thing. And it's not like you are and they'll use the shoes example. It's not like you're selling a pair of shoes on the internet. People buy hundreds of pairs of shoes over their lifetime. It's very rare that someone will commit to give their ISA allowance to you. And so how do you build trust as a company that no one's ever heard of when you're competing with your Hargreaves Lansdowns, your Vanguards, who have massive marketing budgets, a massive presence? So we took the approach of relying on I call it enhanced word of mouth. And for me, that was leveraging the voices of others to grow your brand. And that was very much through kind of influencers and affiliates. If someone is searching best ISA, we need to make sure that we're appearing in that content. People will very rarely end up on our website, but they'll end up on a YouTuber's website talking about their recommended ISA platform for, at that point, would have been the 2022, 2023 tax season. Or they'll end up on a comparison website. So provided the perception of our brand and the view of those people talking about our brand was good, that would give us that leg up that we needed. So that was kind of one of the main channels that we used. And then kind of the refer a friend channel as well. And those two channels are still kind of the fundamental core of our marketing mix at the moment.
Okay.
We're now kind of at that inflection point where the brand needs to kind of grow in its own right, outside of kind of just what influencers and your friends down the pub will say about us. So we're now kind of having to increase our marketing mix at the moment to make sure that we are InvestEngine becomes like a household brand, and it grows through our channels as well as through the refer a friend channels and the influencer channels.
Okay, so we'll get onto the marketing mix later.
Yeah.
But just on the existing mix, what you were doing with the sort of enhanced word of mouth.
Yes.
If I landed on a YouTube channel or a blog and InvestEngine pops up alongside the more established players, Hargreaves Lansdown, etc.
Yes.
How do you compete with that level of trust that you mentioned, in the sense that they already have trust? So how do you not only appear, but also appear to be trustful to that consumer?
Yeah. So I think it's the point I mentioned earlier about winning the trust of the person writing the blog. If the person writes the blog or writes the comparison site, they will give a good impression of your brand. That's one thing. People trust the recommendation of people on YouTube, on people on comparison websites. So that was definitely one thing. Obviously, then when they click away onto our website, there's then a second hesitation point for a customer of like, okay, the YouTubers recommended InvestEngine to me, but now I've got to be convinced as well. So that's when you get into the realm of kind of like ratings and logos. I think like we got a first 5-star rating from Times Money Mentor, and like having that Times logo on our website, people see the logos everywhere. They do their job, and it gives us that kind of brand authority, which is really good. The other side of things as well is that we don't charge any commission, so people can buy and sell ETFs on our platform automatically without being charged anything other than the third-party ETF fees. And I'm clearly well trained in the compliance side of it now because I've just put the full spiel out. But that then plays its own challenge, where people will say, well, how can I trust something that's completely free? So we then had to do a lot of effort into actually kind of reassuring customers that this was a brand that will be around long enough to compete with the likes of the Hargreaves, that we do have the infrastructure in place to look after your money, that the protections are there to make sure that your money is being looked after, that there are some humans behind this website that are looking after your money and making sure that things are done the right way, and that we are adhering to all kind of the regulatory requirements that we need to do. So all of that was in place. The social proof, finally getting customers to actually use it, talk about us, that really helped. The proof from those who had reviewed us. So whether it's the Times, which obviously has a massive brand reach that can help us out, or some of those trusted influencers.
And just on those influencers, would they just mention you, or do they often mention them? Because I see a range of options when I'm looking at an influencer. Yeah. So how do you win the trust of them and kind of put in a more favourable word for you than a trusted platform like Hargreaves Lansdown?
I think the fortunate thing for me, and don't tell my team in this, is that they love the product. So the influencers love the product. So actually from the marketing perspective, I didn't have to do too much. Obviously they are, most of the influencers we work with, influencers can get a bad name, particularly if people haven't actually spoken to them or actually fully understand the segment that we're dealing with. We're not dealing with people who don't do their own research, who would negatively push a customer or a viewer into a platform that's not really suitable for them. Thankfully, the influencers that we worked with, a lot of them came to us, and a lot of them were already writing content or creating content about us because they valued the platform, and what they were comfortable with creating content about was low cost, automated, diversified investing, which is largely what the vast majority of people need, and that meant that thankfully there were few barriers to entry for them to actually talk about us. So they do talk about us. They're comfortable talking about us. They do, as you say, mention other platforms. But what they'll tend to do is do like a standalone review of each platform, and they'll probably update that on like a seasonal basis as you build up to the end of the tax year when you're making kind of ISA and SIP decisions. And then they'll do kind of a comparison of the whole market. And again, they'll probably do that on a regular basis. And then we see a lot of partners that we work with doing maybe ongoing pieces about, this is how my portfolio is doing. This is maybe a feature that's been released. So there is enough space in the market for a number of platforms to be talked about.
Okay, so that was leads me on to my next question, which is, if that's how you establish yourselves amongst the incumbents, how do you then compete with the newer platforms that are not doing the same thing, but are trying to win that trust and provide an easy to use platform for a complex financial product?
Yeah, I think it now comes into, I think with those ones and the ones that have the biggest influence and the ones that are kind of owning the biggest share of voice on YouTube or TikTok, for instance, I think we will only begin to lose out if our product becomes inferior to the other products. So all of those new competitor brands are going to have to go through the same cycle that we did. They're going to have to prove that the product works. They're going to have to prove that they're around for the long term. They're going to have to prove that they have the financial backing to continue to grow long enough that customers can actually benefit from them. So a lot of the influencers and the partners that we work with, they won't just naturally jump to the next shiniest app that's available. There's still a cycle where they will need to review that platform and make sure it's actually fit for purpose. So provided we don't change our kind of product market fit, which is that commission-free, automated, diversified investing, and we continue to provide the wrappers that people need, such as the ISAs and the SIPs, and continue to evolve to suit the style of investing that those influencers have, we do have kind of a bit of a protected sphere. But if our product development starts to lag behind some of these newcomers, we may find ourselves falling down the pecking order in terms of the kind of the prioritization that the influencers and the comparison sites give us.
So does it come down to product then, and those three features, commission-free, diversified, and automated? That they're the three standout. This is why InvestEngine is different to the other platforms. Yeah,
I'd say we're an ETF only platform. We don't allow you to kind of buy single stocks. There's nothing kind of, our business model is geared to align to the success of the customer. So as the customer's portfolio grows, that's where we make money. Whereas a lot of other platforms, they make money from maybe CFDs, which are probably what 90% of customers in the UK should completely avoid, or they make money from hidden fees like FX fees. So there's none of these things exist on the InvestEngine platform. So we are building a platform that is aligned to the success of the consumer, and that is, as you say, through keeping the costs down, through allowing you to automate your investing. I'm probably as guilty as most people of there's probably two or three things in investing that hold people back. One is just getting started. People there's so much financial education, and there's so much talk about we need to educate people. As yes, we need to educate people, but I think people educate through learning. So people just need to get started. So the fact that we are commission free, and the fact that we are naturally diversified through only using ETFs, so exchange traded funds, which allow you to kind of buy a basket of stocks at one time, that means that the risk of trying InvestEngine is considerably lower than maybe dabbling in your first single stock. If all you do is you buy Tesla, great, you might have a few years where you shoot up, but if Elon tweets something, you could lose half your money. Whereas with an ETF, it's you're exposed to, so what most people invest in is either an all-world fund, which is 4,000 or so companies from around the world. So Tesla will be in there, and if Elon tweets, he's just now one of 4,000 companies. So actually the impact of that is kind of dampened out by the rest of the companies in your portfolio. So yeah, that helps you not make the mistakes of perhaps picking the wrong stock. And then the other side to it is, once you've got started, is to keep going. So it's difficult if you have to keep thinking, oh, I must remember to put £100 a month into my investments, and you kind of go down your salary checklist, and before you know it, 3 months have gone by and you've forgotten. We have kind of automated investing through savings plans. So if people join the platform, pick their ETF, and then they start investing on a regular automated basis, so you take the human out of it. The almost like the worst person in investing is yourself. And if you just overthink it, and if you fiddle around too much, then you could end up underperforming where you might have got if you'd have just picked an ETF, got started, set what you could afford on a regular basis. And I think many people would be surprised what their investments could become over time if you just take that approach.
And if it's commission free, how does InvestEngine actually make money?
Yeah, good question. So we make money in a number of ways. So the uninvested cash in the DIY portfolios, we can invest ourselves. So that sits in a low cost product similar to a cash product that you could get from your kind of high street bank. So we can gain interest from that. We also have managed portfolios. So with the DIY side, which is the commission-free side, you can pick from one of 800 ETFs. People tend to pick North America or All World or a bit of gold. But if you want someone looking after a portfolio that's kind of a bit more aligned to your risk rating, so you fill in a questionnaire on our site, it'll give you a risk profile, and then our professional managers will build and manage a portfolio for you. So it's kind of your classic, it's what you'd find in the likes of Nutmeg. It's that kind of robo-advice route, but there's a human behind it. So,
Got you. So the DIY is more the uninvested cash, and the managed is that, the managed service, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
When we think about building trust and the product differentiators and getting the InvestEngine brand out there, are there any campaigns, financial promotions, marketing you've done that you're really proud of, or truly shifted or really helped in that journey in your growth?
I think there's a couple that really helped. One was good fortune plus a lot of hard work and effort, rather than months of pre-planning. So it was about this time last year, and on the 9th of December, we removed the fees from our pension product, from our SIP. So our SIP became completely fee free on the DIY side. 3 days later, our peers at Vanguard increased their SIP fee. So we had this perfect storm of lots of investors using a platform that's very similar to ours, and all the funds are actually available on our platform, suddenly being charged a fee which really went against their whole philosophy that the company was built on. So we saw this massive wave of customers suddenly come across to us. So that was the fortune side of things. And then what we needed to do is obviously just double, triple, quadruple down on the effectiveness of that moment. So we kind of galvanized our investor community. We galvanized kind of our blog and our content teams. And we basically tried to, wherever there was a question of where should I go from Vanguard, we tried to be there. And there were loads of pieces of content that the communities were creating around what are your alternatives now that this fee has come in. So it was a massive story about this fee being introduced.
When was this?
This was December last year. So this was a complete, as we're all kind of, usually the rush for investment platforms is the beginning of April, the end of the tax year. This was an early Christmas present for us. This created a massive wave that then boosted kind of our buoyancy into January and then into April. So that was a good early Christmas present for us. And the team really kind of pulled together in terms of the sheer volume of content we got out at that time.
I think you won a marketing award recently. Was that for that campaign, or was that for something?
I'm not
more
sure.
Generically?
I'll have to check with the team.
Yeah.
I'll have to go through our
there was a LinkedIn
awards
post where
cabinet.
I think you said when you have a team call at 5, but award ceremony at 6.
Yeah, that was with the Investor Chronicles.
Okay.
Investors Chronicle. I always get confused, and the FT. So we'd won awards for our ISA, for our SIP, for our investment app.
Okay, that was a product.
That was generally a product one.
Got you.
Yeah,
but it goes back to your point around having the best product, I guess, brings the marketing that comes with that.
Exactly.
And then the InvestEngine brand building on its
exactly.
own.
You've got to have the marketing role is to build awareness, and that is, I mean, my CEO will be telling me, Adam, we need more and more customers. That is fundamentally what marketing's role is meant to do, but also kind of just empowering the product to be perceived in the best way, and allowing that when someone hits the website, that all of those kind of the key product features, that trust is all there, clear and transparent, and that then handing back over to the product guys that the onboarding is as seamless, and then that's kind of the perfect storm to getting kind of the growth that we've seen.
Mm-hmm. And what metrics, I suppose we've spoken at a high level, but what metrics do you actually care about now from a marketing perspective? Is it just the number of number of customers? Is it numbers converting? What are you focused on as a team?
Yeah, our overarching one is contributions, because obviously that's where we make our money on both the DIY and the managed side.
So that's the amount people have invested.
Exactly, it's the money on the platform, which is growing at a brilliant rate. So we're very happy with that. Then the other is sign-ups and funded accounts. So the volume of customers getting onto the platform, and then it's the cost of those two. So the cost of acquiring new contributions onto the platform, and then the cost of acquiring new customers. So those are like the headline figures that like kind of the whole business really, and particularly the marketing team focus on. But then we get much more granular with each department in terms of whether it's the performance channels, which of those channels have contributed the most to the contributions, so the money that people have put on the platform, which of the channels have contributed the most to sign-ups and funded accounts, then handing it over to kind of the CRM and the products team to convert those sign-ups into funding, into kind of deeper engagement with the platform. So there's we're big on getting metrics in the entire flow.
So it's the cost of that said marketing across the different channels obviously is an important factor, but I also assume the speed at which you can move is important. With the Vanguard example, you had to be on it quickly to make the most of it. So how do you embed processes and systems to ensure you can move quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on. That speed of turnaround is one of the things that can differentiate us versus the incumbents in the industry, and allows us to be competitive. So the process we've got in place, like Adclear, obviously plays a massive role in that. I think from my marketing team, being able to kind of quickly ascertain is the material that they're creating in line with the guidance, so that when they give it through to the compliance team for that final sign off, there's not a massive back and forth. So the more efficiency in that process obviously makes things so much quicker for that one piece of content, but then it also kind of instills that kind of repeatable learning, so that they don't have to, I've recognized I need to put ETF costs apply when I say no costs on the actual platform and things like that. Cool, I know to do that on a regular basis. I think having brilliant relationships with our key distribution channels is you can't achieve what we've been able to achieve without those relationships. So when it comes down to, will you be able to support us in getting this messaging out? If it's a very transactional relationship, or if it's a kind of intermediated through an agency or something like that, it's much harder to kind of have that conversation. So that's a key thing as well. And just being very aligned to the product and the development teams. I think we are I kind of left my old company, which is a more traditional asset management company. It was a brilliant company. I loved working for it. Brilliant people, very talented people. But what we could achieve in a number of weeks at InvestEngine, because I had direct access to the developers, direct access to the compliance teams, direct access to the CEO and the budgets, we could achieve so much more here versus what I could do there. And that's just kind of the scale of the business.
It's maybe hard to, you can't have one without the other, or they influence each other. But would you say speed or cost in the marketing process is more important than the other?
Speed or cost? I'd probably say, I don't know. For me, it's neither of those.
Okay.
Almost like the most valuable thing for me, and what my team probably hate me for, and what I've probably made my life much more difficult, is how can we go beyond the surface level, what we can achieve. So what I like to do, we do a lot of kind of co-marketing with other brands as well. And it's very easy for us to say, okay, we will send out an email to our customer base on your behalf. Like that would achieve one of the goals. But if we bring a third party into that, such as like a media partner or an influencer, yes, having more people in that mix makes things more complicated. But you could have a ETF specialist who has all the product knowledge, the product being kind of knowledge about the ETF and the investment that they are creating. You could have a platform like us where you can actually execute and buy and actually and transact and experience that ETF, and then you can partner with an influencer to give you that reach that we don't necessarily have directly. So that's it's kind of making the most of what you've got is the most important thing for me. So cost and speed doesn't necessarily come into it in that scenario, because things will take longer by getting a third party involved, and you will maximize your exposure by getting a third party involved. So that's it does tend to slow things down a bit, but then the brand impact and your bang for buck is much more effective.
Okay, it's more strategic than the allocation of
much
your
more
time.
Strategic. Yeah.
Where you want to be quick, where you want to be slow, where you want to spend, and where you don't.
Exactly.
Okay, and touching on compliance.
Yeah.
What have you learned about compliance, regulations, being a financial marketer?
Yeah. I think it's just a core part of your job. I think that's the main thing. It's not another part of the business. It needs to be embedded in everything that we do. For throughout my career, I've always kind of thought, like, whether this is just me being lazy in a smart way of like, I would much rather get things right at the beginning than have to fix things later, because the amount of time that you spend fixing things, you'll just end up stuck in the weeds. People will be irritated, and then you can't focus on the next project. So by getting kind of compliance embedded into your processes and what you're trying to achieve, and having that knowledge yourself, means that you're far less likely to end up having to fix something that you've done wrong, or have to redo a piece of work. So yeah, I when I first started my career, I was lucky enough that we had compliance embedded in the marketing team. So then it became getting the work out became a conversation as well as a sign-off process, rather than it being, let's throw it over the wall to someone to say yes or no, and it comes back with a stamp on it. I think that's if you can make compliance just part of your normal day-to-day, and treat it as important as the metrics that you receive, and as important as maybe the design and the look and feel. If you consider it as much as that, then ultimately you will probably produce a better piece of content, and it'll be much easier for you to get out.
So it's like a mindset thing, I guess, to get that.
Yeah.
If I'm a financial marketer, it's core to my job that I involve
100%.
these teams in everything that I do.
Yeah, 100%.
And then you have to execute on actually build the processes around that.
Yes, exactly. And that was one of the tricky things when we started the business, and when we started hiring for the business, because the incumbents, and the businesses that have existed for tens of years, they know what they're doing. They know who they're hiring, and they know they don't need to build an app. They don't need to achieve rapid growth. They don't need to get brand exposure and conversion and all these other things that as a startup you need to achieve. They could focus on kind of 2 or 3 core things and they would achieve their goals. So when we're building a team, you could probably find someone who's really strong on the growth side, but maybe less strong on the financial knowledge, or really strong on how to build a fintech, but again, less knowledge about what an ETF is. So you had that kind of dynamic of, cool, okay, well, you've got to bring those who just, like, some people are so hungry for growth of a business, but then you've got to be like, well, just slow down 2 secs. We need to make sure that you are considering the compliance side of things in this. Whereas if you go the other way around and people are perhaps too afraid to maybe push the boundaries of what is actually possible and allowed within the regulations, then we're not going to achieve growth. So that was an interesting thing in terms of building the team.
I was going to say, is that from building a marketing team, or does that also go to compliance and product in terms of pushing the line, letting things be creative but not going too far?
Yeah,
and having that balance in mind.
Yeah, it applies to the whole business. I think particularly where we were, definitely when we had to be like, okay, we need to find ways to make us different, and we need to obviously evolve the product from what's out there. That inherently just requires you to be pushing the boundaries a little bit. If we're not pushing the boundaries, then I don't think we'll create a better product and push the regulator to kind of come with us on that journey as well, to understand that, okay, this is maybe how customers are choosing to engage. It's not necessarily being driven by us, it's being driven by the consumers and the world out there. So yeah, I think that was one of the key things.
And as a marketer, do you engage with the regulator regularly?
Yeah. So we do a lot. So we engage with them a lot. We're really kind of adding to that function in the business, particularly kind of the compliance functions, the consumer duty functions, the kind of regulatory, the processes all around it. I think that is a real function that we focus a lot on as the business has grown. And I think the knowledge that we've got from those people coming in and their relationships with the regulator is great for us, because then you can build a product that suits their goals as well, and also kind of just to kind of continue to grow in a space that is rightfully controlled and looked after, because obviously it's people's money, but equally, as I think we've seen in some of kind of the changes that are coming at kind of a government level, we do need that kind of flexibility to allow people to increase their investment knowledge. So there is that boundary between allowing people to invest and allowing people to get started with investing and allowing people to hear about investing, such as in the influencer community, and doing it in a right way that delivers kind of good outcomes for the consumer.
Yeah, I mean, influencers is an interesting topic, because obviously the FCA cracked down recently and there were arrests made even on misleading influencers. Yeah. So how do you vet influencers? Like, some brands don't use influencers for this reason. So what's your approach to that?
Yeah, and I think you'll have pricked many ears with the influencer community when talking about that. And I think it's how the influencer community is perceived. And I think there's a real spectrum of people that are out there that are working in this space and kind of running their businesses through this. Yes, there are those that will push people that will give bad advice, that will knowingly mislead consumers. We don't work with people like that, and we do background checks and we get to know them personally, and we see the content that they're creating. We've got kind of due diligence questionnaires, and we've got kind of ongoing monitoring and flags that post up when content has been posted so we can review it, and there's contracts in place to ensure that if something does go out that we're not comfortable with, that we can maintain control of it. So all of these kind of structures are in place, and we don't work with anyone. And I think the more that people can kind of understand the finfluencer community and of the trusted finfluencers, you'll know. I know many of them have sought compliance advice themselves. I've always thought, I don't know if you do this, but whether they run their own content through a platform like Adclear as well, I think it's a perfect. I've said to my influencer team, like, let's just give the influencers that we work with a license to Adclear, and then they can run their own materials through it, and then they can begin to learn, because the audiences aren't going to go away. They would much rather hear from a trusted face on YouTube what are the tax implications of the latest budget, or where should they put their ISA allowance. That's not going to go away. So by working with those individuals and working with those communities, and I'm comfortable doing it because our platform is inherently built to support investors. I think maybe if I was promoting CFDs on the platform, if I had a more riskier kind of exposure on the platform, I probably wouldn't sleep as well at night. But I'm pretty comfortable with the level of education we are doing with those partners and the partners that we work with, and that is a sustainable and it should be a kind of a channel that's embraced rather than kind of shut down. By all means, shut down the ones that are going rogue, completely right, and help influencers and platforms and businesses put structures in place to work with the good guys, because it's really interesting. If you kind of slow down the good guys, just think about how the algorithm on YouTube works, then it's going to be easier for viewers to find the bad content. If there's less good content on YouTube, there's going to be more bad content out there. So we just need to find ways to work and create and increase the level of good content and trusted content and content that is supporting good outcomes for consumers, rather than maybe just trying to put a blanket ban on the entire thing.
It's like a few bad apples might ruin everything.
Perfect.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you, I mean, if you're the regulator, your InvestEngine or your technology providers, is it about building standards or systems, or how do you ensure that the good apples come through and kind of get rid of the bad actors?
Yeah. I think it's exactly that. I think it is. Yeah. I think they ultimately have to adhere to the same rules and regulations that we have to. When you start being a voice that is that prominent, you have to follow the same guidance that we do. The trouble is that they could start up in their back bedroom, and they don't have the infrastructure and the resource and the know-how and the knowledge that they need to go and get those foundations. So I think I think putting the structures in place, giving them a very intuitive, easy to use platform like Adclear for them to actually go and test their content on, rather than maybe having to necessarily like read a white paper on a relatively boring website and try and pick out regulation 11.26. Okay, maybe I can and can't do that. The technology is out there, the conversation is out there. So I think that's the way to go in my mind.
I mean, selfishly, we've always thought that if there was a finfluencer that's been ad cleared, for example, you can always trust that they've gone through that process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was thinking that I think the next thing for that industry is like if they don't get a central authority to give the regulation, let's pair together and give them a stamp of approval and hopefully that kind of appeases a lot of people. To
get Adclear, you need a firm's like InvestEngine's trust as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch this space 2026.
Yeah, exactly. Let's make it happen.
To wrap up, I would love any advice you might have for junior marketers going into finance or fintech. What would you say are best practices or tips or any guidance you might offer?
I think the most important one for me is upskilling your knowledge. I think I was a geography student, so good at colouring in the lines, and then I went and worked for BlackBerry, so social media for BlackBerry.
That's a whole other episode, probably.
I know, and hence knowing that it was 15 years ago because it was BlackBerry. And yeah, so then when I went and started working for a financial firm, I had to upskill my financial knowledge to allow me to actually go toe to toe in those conversations with someone in compliance. If you don't understand the terminology that they're using, if you don't understand why they're giving you the rules and regs, if you don't understand perhaps how you could challenge them, then you're just going to be at a dead end every single time. So yeah, I joined, I had a brilliant boss. She had a marketing background, but had also kind of done CFA and IMC, and I just followed that route. So I did, I joined, did the IMC, which gave me that kind of backing, that confidence to be able to go sit in a room with a compliance person or with the investment team to actually be able to say, look, yes, I am a marketer, and I know there is a hierarchy in a lot of those companies, but I've got my background, I've got my education, and that gives me, yes, the backbone to have a constructive conversation, to trust myself, and usually the knowledge to actually implement it.
Cool. So upskilling,
yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
Really
That
appreciate
flew by.
it. It really did. It really did. We'll have to get you on for another one.
Yeah, I hope it's not all gibberish. But yeah.
I'm sure it won't be.
Brilliant. Nice
Cheers.
one. Cheers. Thank you.